Endemol would be bottling it up and selling it, right? So I suppose the first question, and perhaps even the obvious question is, why have we not had the breakout hit? Why haven't we had our Squid Game, our Money Heist? Why hasn't that happened? And I don't mean that as a, as a criticism. Is that a newer ambition where we want to now go global? Is that something we never aspired for necessarily, wanted to sort of solidify what we're doing in our local business? But why am I offering answers? If each of you could take that. Ambika. No, this is to everyone.
So
Okay.
why?
Sure.
No, go ahead, Shobha.
So why Squid Games? Why Game of Thrones? Why not? We are. I think Netflix is doing a Hira Mandi.
Yeah.
There are things in place. Why do we
course.
need to follow anybody else?
No,
I think
what
we should
I
have
meant is- what
the
I meant-
breakout shows. Yeah.
Right.
The breakout shows. One is the type of budgets that we play with. In spite of the large audience that we have, both. I'm saying pre-production budgets and the budgets to make everything. I think we are very price sensitive.
Right.
So to think that something's going to break out and expect something to break out, it never does. Squid Games, I think, was in the box for such a long time, not finding a taker. These things happen. I don't think we can design it, and I'm very sure we're on the brink of it.
Okay. Do you all have a different take?
So I feel we're, as a streaming industry, maybe we are 5-6 years, young right now. I think the breakout hit, according to me personally, is maybe around the corner now.
Okay.
I think there was a lot of learning and unlearning that we had to do as a creative community. I think that's happened in the last 3 to 4 years, and I think now the creative community is, poised for that breakout hit.
Right.
We've seen great such precedents of Sacred Games and Patal Lok and a whole lot of other things that have really hit the mark. I think we're now really poised to really take the next level. And I think with what's happening across the streaming industry globally and in India, I think we're just excited that we're now at this stage.
Okay. Sushant, Ambika?
I genuinely think we're just, I think we're just very close to having that definitive, sort of defining breakout hit. Because the signs are all there, right? We are seeing Indian stories travel so brilliantly outside, right? Not just streaming original shows, but even movies. I mean, you look at something like RRR. I think we are just a step away from having that massive moment. But I do want to acknowledge in the meantime that we have been true to authentic local storytelling, right? Serving what, as India itself, is a fairly heterogeneous market when it comes to audience, right? And therefore, I think we have done, as an industry overall, I think we have done a fabulous job of being able to do that, right? And we are beginning to see the offshoots of these stories moving outside the country. Some of these IPs themselves kind of being reimagined in other parts of the world. I mean, almost a quarter of the viewers of Prime Video original shows that we make in India are actually from outside India. So it's just a question of time. But I think while we do that, I do want to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that we are continuing to focus on authentic, local, deeply rooted storytelling, because those typically are the ones that find that global audience.
Yes.
An absolute +1 to local authentic stories, Rajeev. And I think we are not waiting for tomorrow. We are right there. What RRR did was magical. What the Elephant Whisperers did to all of us was magical. And Raghu and Amu as the elephants were not just loved in India, they were crazily loved all over the world. Right? So this is breakout.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, if people are able to see and find themselves related on the screen, be it through something like elephants, or be it through people, be it through just a Nato dance, which is just such a phenomenal rage, that is a breakout, right?
Okay.
And of course, there's lots in the pipeline. I think collectively, all of us and all the creators here, we've got some amazing stuff in the pipeline. You may want to change the definition of breakout in
sure.
a couple of months because of that.
Okay. Apurvaji?
Prithul. So, well, I have a little different take on this. I already believe that, I keep hearing stories from you all only, that, something which was the content, Indian content, which was put on a global pedestal got appreciated. There are many movies, we know they were a hit in India, but only after they were released on OTTs, they became a global hit. So it's already happening. And I also have a different take on this from just seeing that, something money heist like that has come. If you see the numbers, you already have, in the 5 years of its OTT, its being, 100 million subscribers in India. I mean, look at the numbers and look at their numbers. So actually, OTTs in India are very, very popular. And let's look at it like that. And I think the way our stories are traveling outside, I'm really hopeful that, then they'll be taking these kind of sessions and they'll be asking such questions.
Okay. The recurring thing that all of you said is that it's just round the corner. It's literally round the corner. So I'm going to ask the indelicate question. Now, is it just round the corner because we're having an India moment, or are our shows and our material genuinely international global standards?
I don't think that we are having a moment. From the time that our films, and I don't just mean the festival circuit films, from the time that commercial films have reached out to the world and reached out to the festivals, gone all through. RRR is a recent phenomenon with the Academy, but I'm saying that we had the Ranveer film that Zoya did, which went, I'm not sure. Then there was Toronto, we've had Shekhar's film that's moved in. Right. There's so many, Devdas that went to Cannes. There's so many of these films that have already been making the noise. It's not just by accident or just today that Indian cinema or Indian content is being sampled. I think it's been sampled for quite a while. Right. My observation on this and my own personal experience when I've traveled is that they're always trying to find something exotic to see from India. And I think that's all that we need to put out consistently. The conversation out here would be, how do we reach out more consistently? I think we're making the right things. Right. The point is about reaching out, that's it.
If I could just add, we have been breaking out. It's just that India is almost like a universe and a world in itself that is so different. So when you look at Pushpa, that breaks out, right, across the country, it did break out. Sure. Right? When you look at a Kantara, it did break out, right? I mean, almost half the viewership of our shows actually happens from outside the home state that we actually, originally envisaged it in. So I think it's been breaking out. I think it's a question of when that breakout kind of has that ripple of breaking out universally. But India is not just one homogeneous audience. So I think to your question of, are we having a moment, or is this just an evolution and a maturing? I think our storytelling has just gotten so incredibly rich. I think creators, studios and talent, everybody is kind of imagining a world of great storytelling because streaming allows that reach, for every story finding its own audience, right? So I think we are already breaking out nationally because we are not just one unified country.
Homogeneous sort of country, yeah.
Can I add a slight Muan Sun dimension to it? It's not just about Indian stories that are breaking out everywhere, right? When you have the ability to sub and dub in 20 languages, 40 languages, 60 languages, it's just so powerful. When you have the ability to add on accessibility features, you're then opening this content and taking it to, again, millions of viewers all over the world. So it's a lot also about global content finding home and hearts in minds of Indians. And we see that trend really going up really high. There are umpteen examples. I mean, if I pick up a title like Attorney Woo, right, which probably would have really resonated in country in Korea, but there was phenomenal viewership and love in a country like India as well. So it just works both ways for viewers all over the world to be able to appreciate and resonate that feeling and sentiment.
Right.
No, I think, the time is, moving in a manner that, there was a time where we were all inspired out of Nordic content, then it was Israeli content, then it was Turkish content, now it's Korean content, and I genuinely believe in the next year or so it's going to be India. And, we've seen that in the last couple of years, how many creative colleagues of ours have hit the global platforms, global forums. I mean, and, just this week and, months before as well, the moment has come now. I think it is really about timing the jump. And now as a creative community and as the streaming community, we've got to time the jump and really go for the kill.
Right. I think most of you will agree. Up until very recently, the film industry I speak specifically for this Hindi film industry, but I think it's true also of the other industries. The ambition wasn't necessarily to appeal to a to a non-Hindi speaking audience or to a non-Telugu Tamil speaking audience. I mean, it was a very self-sufficient. I mean, there was an audience. You knew that their audience would come out, and the films were. I mean, the whole crossover thing was almost derided, right? It was. I mean, I remember journalists like me asking that question. They were like, "But who needs to cross out? We have this massive audience." Do you feel like the ambition has shifted? Do you feel like now that is a goal among storytellers, among filmmakers?
This entire box office conversation, so we have reached a peak in terms of the making, the numbers and the recoveries. I think this is more sensitive there.
Yeah.
When you make a film and then it has a certain recovery, you need a larger audience if you want to make larger films. And I'm talking about cost. Every day these costs are escalating. So then the only way to manage that is now to move to larger audiences. Right. And that's why the global audience now is so important to us. We've been just to give you an example, we did a small Marathi film by Panvari Deva, which has gone, I mean, it's almost touched the triple-digit number. There was a Serad that did that. Yeah. It's not about the language. It's not about Hindi or non-Hindi. I think all languages, Hindi included, are now finding its audience in the I mean, for Marathi, it's non-diaspora when I say non-Marathi audience. Right. So I think that is anyway expanding. And the need now is more, it's more because we need to make larger films. We're seeing the production quality, we're seeing the storytelling, which is so much better with the advent of the platforms. We've seen that. So now we will not be forgiven for bad production. So that is one of the reasons why we would need to make to reach out to a larger audience.
Sure. Apurji, would you like to add?
Yeah, definitely I'd like to add. So I think that OTT's journey has just begun. So if you see that, these stories which OTTs were picking up, all the people here on the dais included, initially was towards a little coarser, this thing, something which was not there in the public exhibition, which probably had issues of public exhibition. And people were loving it. But I think now, the government was also thinking, what kind of regulatory mechanism? There were societal changes happening because of that. There were issues happening. But I think now it's high time they're also thinking that, this is the vision that to have more audience, it's better to look for a global story, global appeal. And of course, all the technical elements need to be dwelled on to make content which is worldwide accepted. So that is what I think everybody of us is now feeling. And it's a happy state for us also that, this. Right. And when the intention is there, I'm sure they'll be able to do it and they'll be coming for that.
It's very interesting what he said, and I want to ask the two streaming bosses here. The truth is that in the West, certainly in America, I mean, when Netflix was sort of born, and I think it's true even of Prime Video, it was meant to be the home for the storyteller who wasn't necessarily finding a home in the cinemas. That changed there. And it seems to have changed here as well, because, I mean, it was meant to be that, right? I mean, like, you were going to support the filmmakers who were not going to, who weren't either interested or weren't able to reach out to those massive theatrical audiences. That's not what we're hearing currently. And one understands it's a business, and Apurvaji also shed light on that. But, I mean, is there a plan in terms of what is the way forward? Because it feels like, I hear from independent filmmakers all the time, and their films are not being bought. Their films are not being are not the hot stuff anymore. They're not getting the kind of you're not buying those films for the prices that is even covering the cost of those films. Do you want to sort of shed some light on this? I already made the excuse for you all. I know it's a business. Everyone needs to be doing the business, but it almost feels like streaming, like theatrical, is slowly becoming exclusively the domain of the big budget star vehicles.
Rajeev, it has to do with you. Rarely have I seen a question elicit that level of a response. So kudos on that. Let me present the facts of the case, because I think it is important that we actually look at what we are trying to build out. Right? Sure, there is an element of business and so on and so forth to it, but I mean, the long-term vision, as we kind of tend to take for everything at Amazon, is if we don't serve the customers well over a long enough period of time, we're going to be defunct, right? So let's look at the slate for, just in the last 10 or 11 months. We've had such a range of creators, right? We've worked with over 100 creators so far as Prime Video in India. We have almost 100 projects in various stages of development right now. It's in fact, India is the second largest investment slate for Prime Video globally after the US, right? It's the second largest. And so let's just look at the range of shows and kind of movies that we have had on the service. And you have Fuzzy, and again, to your previous point of, Fuzzy was actually greenlit well before, I think the world woke up to the term crossover. It just made for interesting storytelling, right? Because streaming actually provides not just expands the linguistic palette for customers, but it also is a window into many cultures. So, bringing Shahid Kapoor and Vijay Sethupathi and everybody else and Fuzzy went on to become this monster, not just in India, but globally. But back to your question, we had the likes of Fuzzy, then we had Ji Karda, then we had a docu-series, then we had a very, family comedy show in, Happy Family Condition Supply. A majority of the shows that we have launched this year have been with new upcoming creators. We obviously will continue to bring back the successful Mirzapur and Family Man and Patal Lok. But our conscious attempt has been to ensure that we have creators that we work with. Almost half the creators that we work with are new. They're new to streaming. So I don't think we're necessarily moving in that direction. Because I think if we start moving there, our ambition to be a default entertainment or for streaming to be a primary entertainment destination, I think we would have defeated the whole purpose itself. So I don't see that happening, at least basis of the run that we have had. And to the last part of your question of what do I think the next couple of years will look like, I think I tend to think of it as we've been in India for 7 years, and if something is not broken and seems to be working well, let's not break it. So we are all in.
Ambika, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, no, I agree with Sushant. I agree with Sushant. I think India is the hub for investment. And even for Netflix, India is the second most invested market, where the company is totally committed to investing in content and producing all over the country. So over the past couple of months and quarters, all of you, I'm sure a big bunch of you are subscribers, you would have seen that diversity in the slate. We have been very, very focused, doggedly working on a diversity of stories, ideas, themes, genres, and they come from a diversity of creators. Many of them are absolutely new. I would just like to add an element of skills as well, right? So when we talk about new first-time creators or musicians or script writers or directors, there is a lot of investment and focus, and I know Prithul ji has been really talking about skill building, where as Netflix, we've been partnering with the ministry, would really want to partner more and more and engage more and more with the upcoming new young community so that we can partner, we can learn from you, you can learn from us, and together we can build a stronger ecosystem going ahead. I think it's not a one-time switch, it's a long journey. And we've all embarked upon it, we've all invested in it, we are totally committed to ensure that together we can just create better and better content with more new, brighter faces as we move along.
Prithulji, I want to allow you to speak, but I want to specifically ask you. You said right at the start that it seems like now the streamers with going for broad entertainment is the way forward. That's more palatable, is what you were saying. What then becomes the home for the independent filmmakers? And I'm not only talking about the first-time filmmakers. The word on the street is genuinely that even experimental filmmakers who've had some experience making films, whose films have traveled to festivals. There's not a lot. The way, I don't want to name, but films that have done well at film festivals also not necessarily finding a home at the streamers. And Prithulji, is there the need to step in, for the powers to step in and say, listen, we need to protect those voices as well. We need to make sure those voices get heard as well. There are a lot of independent films. There are a lot of smaller films that are not finding a home.
So I'll jointly answer the first question and the second one. So actually there are demands because of all this that government should also have a OTT platform. I mean, frankly, you know, whenever we go, they say that, you know, through Prasar Bharati, through NFDC, you should also have a OTT platform. But I just take you like 5 years back when the OTTs were not there. Do you think even independent filmmaker could even think of going to an exhibitor and doing a distribution of its film? But now, on the contrary, we are believing that maybe, you know, everybody is not getting a space. But we believe in the government, but because of the OTTs, many of the filmmakers which hitherto would not be able to publish their content into the cinema theaters, they're getting a space. It's the other way, actually. OTTs as a platform have provided so much more to the content producers that, you know, even mid-budget, low-budget can think of making such content, which was earlier rather not available. So that's what I wanted to stress. And from the government's perspective, we feel that this sector is fairly doing well and getting investment into India. And it's taking its own course correction, a lot of things we are seeing. And I'm sure this is going to go well for itself. Okay. In fact, their show Hira Mandi is, as was told by Netflix, it is the biggest production of Netflix International. So if Netflix is going ahead in India and making its biggest production, that means Indian content holds value internationally.
Yeah. Okay. Deepak, you're also doing sort of an interesting thing where you're, and I know a lot of people are, but while you are making the original shows, you're also taking a lot of international IPs and doing sort of Indian remakes. You did The Night Manager for Hotstar, which was massively successful. You've got a reality show now that's Temptation Island, which is again a very successful IP globally. What is the idea there, and what is the? I mean, for shows like that, is an eye on the global market, or do those shows tend to not have that potential because they're already a successful international IP?
No, as in, because we are Banijay and Endemol, we have the luxury of really looking at the global IP and seeing things that can be adapted and can be, produced for our audiences as well. So, of course, Night Manager was one of them. It was an ambitious production, to say the least. Everybody was wondering how this is going to land in the peak of COVID, but we're constantly looking at these trends that can be, brought into India. I think for us, the exciting part is not that it's a global franchise, but a story that can be adapted and can be told to our Indian audiences. But, for me personally, there is no better joy than really creating an original. Of course, we want to bring an adaptation in. That's business needs. It keeps the scoreboard ticking. It's easier to produce. It's easier to adapt. But, always, my hunger and greed lies to really find that original story to kind of put that out there.
Right. To all of you, how is the straight-to-streaming model affecting the entire ecosystem? What is the experience you all are having with that? Shobha, yeah, Sushant.
What's the impact of the straight-to-streaming?
Yeah.
Well, I would like to believe that as part of a repertoire of being able to bring stories to customers, I think it's a palette, right? You have original shows that, as Prime Video we make, and movies, and then you have co-productions. We've actually had a couple of co-productions already with Abundantia, and we have more coming up with Dharma and others. And then you have direct-to-streaming movies, and then you have pay one movies after theatrical release. Our approach has been pretty straightforward, which is, if there's a good story that we think we ought to bring to customers, Prime members in 240 countries and territories that we are present in, then we got to figure out a way to make that model work. So a lot of these has actually been India first innovations in, right when we went into the pandemic and the lockdowns. We actually started off the whole direct-to-streaming sort of approach in India. Right? And over the last 3-4 years, we have had almost 60 movies that have released. This only works when the creators and the producers come to us and say, we think this has a global appeal and a global audience, right? So we want to partner with you. It only works then, right? So in the sum total of all the options and all the ways that we can bring stories to customers, I would like to believe that direct-to-streaming has been a win-win for customers globally as well, and also for the creators to be able to think untethered of the distribution, right, think of the stories that they really want to tell, because we are there to make sure that the audience finds it. Yeah.
Okay. Shobha?
I'll go one step further. To first understand the difference between theatrical cinema, OTT cinema, we've always had satellite. Theatrical gives you a particular window. There's a certain urgency to book that date and go in. Similarly, satellite, you had that single viewing. There wasn't recording and catch-up TV or anything of that sort. The moment it comes on OTT, there's no urgency. So we are unable to know what is really being viewed as first-day viewing, except, again, I come back to that. The big budget films, the big star cast films are the ones that catch the attention and get those opening numbers, if that's what I have to call it. Right. The others are discovered over a period of time. For me, it's always been about discovery. The moment you know that this is a story that interests you, you pick it up. And the viewing always happens. I don't think that anything else in that lot changes. Content is more, it's always been the audience viewpoint more than the maker's viewpoint in terms of consumption. So it's just that. I think we have to tailor make for each audience.
Sure. Ambika and Sushant, I mean, do you kind of want to weigh in on that? Because what Shobha's saying is that that on streaming you're sort of looking for something that has longevity, has something that doesn't necessarily need to break out on its opening weekend. Is that accurate? Because you are also specifically commissioning the big ones. You want to recreate the theatrical model on
exactly what
streaming.
I mean. Exactly what I mean. Right. We're trying to replicate the theatrical model on every platform.
Yeah. Because all I hear is who's in it, and that question is because you all want to make big movies.
No, I think from digital's perspective, it's slightly different. There is a lot of viewing that happens on the small device, the phone, right? Yeah. In fact, if we look at India, almost 79 to 80% of the viewing does take place on the phone. A lot of viewing actually happens in the initial few days. So the first 7 days, the first 14 days, and then the first 28 days kind of become critical. After which, there is just so much choice on the service. Right? So people do get distracted, and because it's also very conversation and word of mouth driven, then people really want to watch what's next. Right. Hey, Railwaymen came out next week, but what's coming next? Archie's is dropping after 10 days. There's something amazing dropping after another 10 days. And of course, there are so many services. So I think consumers really have a lot to choose from. And that's where, while we love the fact that we can always go back and watch Crown Season 1, even when the 5th season is coming out, that age and longevity is there, but for many people, they really want to watch where the conversations are, what's dropping it now, what do they see outside. If they see Archie's bags hanging around here, they want to see that. So I think
you
that
set
creates,
the conversation, no?
Yeah, so conversations create that excitement and urgency in a big way.
Yes, it is true. We have the Indian Police Force coming in January.
It's an event.
It is true we have that. And it is also true that we have had Sweet Karam Coffee this year. It's also true that we have had P.I. Meena this year. It's also true that we have had Bambai Meri Jaan this year. It's also true that we have had, I could go on. I think it is very important that, at least in the way we think about it, is it's an incredibly diverse landscape of entertainment, where not one language, not one genre, not one type of customer sort of constitutes the sum total. And fortunately for us, we kind of had that abject realization very early on, right? So our programming across 10 languages, our programming across a very diverse slate of genres, our programming for very, very different customer types keeps us rooted in the reality that as much as we would, go and build those large events, as you may call them, in Indian Police Force or some of the others, at the same time, if you look back to 2018 and 19, when Mirzapur was this show that nobody had heard of, right? Yeah. Now we get to call it, it's this, culture-defining show. But back then it was just a show well told. Right. Similarly with Patal Lok, we have had Jubilee this year, right? We have had Made in Heaven. And I think we need to back the right creators and the right, honest storytelling. And they go on to become things that we then, in retrospect, say these were the large sort of culture-defining moments. 6 out of the top 10 shows on IMDb today are from Prime Video. But if you ask me, was Panchayat envisaged to be one of those massive ones. No, it was just a good story. Right. And it just became that. And I think we need to be honest to that. Yeah. And as opposed to chasing that, who's in it approach.
I'm told that we don't have a lot of time, but I feel like asking one question in the end because I think there's lots of storytellers and filmmakers in the room, and I think this will be valuable to anyone that wants to tell a story and wants to make a film that could land up on one of your streaming platforms or something that you could produce. What is, what is working well on streaming and what is still experimental but has potential? What are the tips that I mean, is there something you're specifically looking for? Are there some things that streamers won't respond to because they don't trend or they don't tend to perform?
I can take the first part of the first question. I think what streamers are looking for is diversity and then, of course, quality. Yeah. And the third aspect is relatability. If our viewers, current and prospective, can find their stories, their moments, their faces, just themselves reflected on the screen, they'd love to watch it. And that can only come from diversity if you have subscriber base of millions all over the world. Right. So that's what the services are looking for.
Okay.
So as a producer, what we're looking for is clearly just honest storytelling, just creators or writers who are going to put in the efforts to get the process right. And I'm pretty sure a global, story is lying somewhere in this room. So, we would love to really own up to that process and, kind of start producing it.
Okay.
I'll go back to your first question. There was a team of people who made Squid Games. It didn't find a home until someone shows faith in it.
Right.
So it's a whole set of people. There's a whole chain out there that needs to show faith in something that's different. And all the qualities that we're all discussing. At the end of the day, as we started, there's no secret sauce.
Yeah.
We're all working our ways up with it, trying to figure where we can put this and how we can get this to work. I think it's all work in progress.
Okay. Sushant?
I think I'll just keep this brief. I think there are two things that really drive any form of storytelling, really, and we are the land of storytellers. Is the story an entertaining escape into other worlds? Yeah. The other is the story going to be a trusted friend? Which is this story going to be something that inspires me, provokes me, makes me think, makes me look at the world a different way, right? And and I'm simplifying and I'm generalizing here and I'm conscious of it, but if you by and large look at the great stories of across any culture or language, they more or less fall into one of the two. They either transport me to worlds, metaphorically, or they compel and propel me to transport myself into a different world than the world that I'm in over a period of time. So anything that is honest to one of these two, I think it'll always find an audience.
Okay. Prithulji, you should have the last word. Where do you see sort of streaming going in the next 2 years, if you like? And is it optimistic for everyone who has an original, story to tell?
So, I'll just make a comparison. See, cinema felt threatened and felt that OTTs were a challenge.
Yes.
And, believe it or not, they have bounced back. So, competition has made them better. The theaters are, again being thronged by people. There may be other factors, but yes, content is one part of it that you have to show the content according to that. Today, I believe that before OTTs will realize there'll be competitions there for them to improve themselves better. Today, I see as shorts have become so popular, OTTs have a challenge because people have limited time. And I see people are flipping more shorts than flipping OTTs. So they still have a challenge to go, and I think it's gonna help them better themselves to the scenario and put up better stories. And that's win-win for all of us here. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we go home a little less cynical, a little bit more hope. Thank you to all of you for shedding light, and thank you for being a spectacular audience. I don't think we have time for questions. I'm told that's all the time we have. But thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rajeev.